Prisons are back in the headlines.
We're used to getting this type of headline about the jail system, so occasionally it's good to see one like this. A former landscaper turned East Timor army sniper turned coffin cheater nominee turned drug dealer who turned a corner. Andrew Geldert's is an old school pull yourself up by the bootstraps road to redemption story. We knew a bit about his life 20 years ago because he was in the headlines over a shooting in a place which at the time was almost as dangerous as East Timor, Bunbury's Exit nightclub. Geldert was in the club in 2002, back then it was known as Area 1, when Rebels bikie Gavin John McMaster shot him in the neck and chest. McMaster was a former army paratrooper, so we had this bizarre situation where two blokes who served the same country in the ADF came out of the army, joined opposing bikie gangs and went toe-to-toe in Bun Vegas. Geldert had been back in WA for a couple of years when McMaster shot him. He'd returned to the southwest after completing a 3-month tour of duty in 99-2000. Bit of a hero back then. But he was soon having his picture taken with very different people. Arrested, charged and convicted in 2006 after his drug importation was infiltrated by an undercover cop. Two things could have happened when the judge handed him his 7-year sentence. He could have continued gang life inside and ended up spending the rest of his life going in and out of jail. Or option 2, which thankfully he went to, was trying to better himself. Walked out after 5 years with a Bachelor of Business and a swag of TAFE diplomas, and is now making a living as a life and business coach.
The 4 pillars of your existence, whether you like to acknowledge it or not, are mental, spiritual, emotional and physical.
While working on a movie script he wrote while at Wooroloo Prison Farm.
What is set to become the biggest movie...
The biggest movie ever made.
In the history of movie making.
A big dream, a big vision.
Reckons getting busted by the cops was one of the best things that ever happened to him.
The undercover cop obviously did a good job.
Covert detective infiltrating a coffin cheater-linked cocaine syndicate that was doing business with a Colombian drug cartel.
You got some balls, my friend.
Seriously hope that guy's life insurance policy was paid up.
It's always been a dangerous job.
Yeah, you don't need to be a Donnie Brasco to dice with danger as a copper in 2023 though.
How about if I f***ing whack you right here and now?
New statistics indicate the number of assaults on police has trebled over the past 6 years. 230 odd incidents in the 3 months to March compares with less than 80 in the same period in 2017. One officer described breaking up a street fight in Northam and getting spat on in his mouth. Not going to see that part of the job in the marketing campaign to get more cops from Britain.
Anyone want a job in Western Australia?
So you can get exposed to Hep C and be called a white up by a teenage girl.
A young girl.
I know, obviously emulating her role model.
You know what I say to you? You know what I say to you? And you?
You're a racist dog.
Oh, penis, God.
That's Indigenous political leader Lidia Thorpe doing her best to encourage a yes vote at 3 a.m. outside a strip club.
Any black man that stands with a white little like that, you can all get too.
I wonder if she'll be done for racial vilification. Discuss.
Let's move on.
The stats about police assaults has reignited debate about how to get the youth to show some respect. Everyone is saying we need more of this.
Kumbaya, my lord.
When everyone knows we really need more of this.
What side was that, Private Pile?
Sir, left side, sir!
Are you sure, Private Pile?
The cops naturally want anyone who spits on them to go to jail.
So they can spit on prison guards instead.
Spit's one of the better things you can be hit with in jail at the moment.
A prison officer that had a fire extinguisher chucked at his head. Another one that has a suspected fracture to either his ankle or his leg.
Turns out the kids from Banksia Hill, now housed at Casuarina, can teach a thing or two to the old dogs. One of the worst riots ever at WA's most secure prison, and it was done by a bunch of kids. The Department of Justice described it as a major disturbance.
I felt a great disturbance in the force.
In this instance, the voices crying out in terror before being suddenly silenced were the prison guards. Rumour is the kids were so feral on Saturday that the Special Operations Group, that's these guys, had to use flashbangs, which stun you by going flash then bang, 40mm gas grenades,
Trust me.
and more pepper spray than you could possibly imagine. And it still took 10 hours to get the inmates back into their cells.
Who says kids these days are going soft?
Mark McGowan says behaviour is unacceptable and there will be repercussions.
If you're going to riot and attack people, well then you shouldn't be in juvenile detention. You should be in an adult prison.
Right now, we're locking these kids up for 23.5 hours a day, so short of going full Abu Ghraib and actually torturing them, I don't quite know what else we can do as punishment.
Here comes the airplane. There you go. Open into the hangar. There you go. Yep, eat it.
The Premier dropped his tough-on-crime rhetoric with typical dick-thrusting bravado a few minutes before getting on a plane and off out of the country.
So long, sucker!
Hoping Bill Johnson could work out what those repercussions would be. Bill was hoping that the Premier's plane crashed in the South China Sea. It didn't, because an hour after takeoff, someone on board had a stroke. The Premier was able to identify the nature of the medical emergency as a stroke because, like me, he's long suspected most of his cabinet have suffered one. I'm Ben Harvey. For more update, click the subscribe button below.